Hi everyone, thank you for coming along today. My talk today is whole food plant-based eating for health. There we go. For those who don't know me, I'm a medical doctor. I work in Perth and I'm on the general practice training program. And I have an interest in preventative health and specifically in the role and power of nutrition to prevent and reverse disease. So as Justin kindly mentioned, I'm also representing Plant-Based Easy. It's a whole food plant-based recipe app and it's a meal planning app that I created and released in 2015. It brings together a collection of over 70 recipes from plant-based doctors and dietitians throughout Australia. I'm also representing Plant Powered Perth, and it's a community group that I started with Kelsey Brymer and Kamara Morris. And we started this group to help people who want to transition to a whole food plant-based diet and learn about it. And we do this through social and education events. A whole food plant-based diet is abundant in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes. It's a vegan diet as it excludes all animal products, and it also excludes refined foods, including oil, and minimises processed foods to focus on eating meals made from whole plant foods. This is a great resource from the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, which comes out of Washington. It outlines the approach to whole food plant-based diet and to ensure you're meeting your nutritional requirements. It sets a benchmark for what's required on a daily basis to achieve and maintain good health. As you can see, it recommends 3 or more servings of fruit per day, 2 or more servings of legumes, which includes chickpeas and beans, and 5 or more servings of whole grains, and 4 or more servings of vegetables. There are many other resources that are helpful, such as the Power Plate and the Plant-Based Dietitian's Food Pyramid. Plant-based diets, in conjunction with physical activity and avoiding harmful activities such as smoking and alcohol, can prevent, treat and cure the chronic and nutrition-related diseases that we're seeing so commonly today. More so than the National Australian Guidelines, much more so. So I've just listed a couple of things here, but they're definitely the most common ones that I deal with and the most common ones that we see in the Australian population today. So type 2 diabetes, heart disease and hypertension, which is high blood pressure, cancer, and this includes mounting evidence for the prevention of bowel cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer and more, and overweight and obesity. Type 2 diabetes is a condition that results from insulin resistance. Your body needs the hormone insulin to uptake glucose into the cells. However, intracellular lipids, or fat inside your muscle cells, reduces the sensitivity of your cells to insulin. This prevents the glucose from entering the muscle cells where it can be used, and it traps it in the bloodstream, where over time it's exposed to all of your organs, and the higher blood sugar really affects those organs with the smaller or delicate blood vessels, like your eyes and your kidneys, and they're common complications for people with type 2 diabetes, as well as infection risk and all sorts of really devastating problems. Your body responds by the pancreas producing more insulin, and eventually it will exhaust this process and the body won't be able to produce its own insulin, and people with type 2 diabetes over time find themselves requiring the injectable insulin every day, often with every meal, just to manage their blood sugar. At this point, there are about 1.7 million people in Australia who have diabetes, and 85 to 90% of them are type 2 diabetics. The World Health Organization has now estimated that by 2030, there will be 366 million diabetics on the planet. And that number is insane. It's out of this world. For cancer, as I'm largely talking to a vegan audience, the key message is fibre. Eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, your whole grains, your legumes, and you need to really focus on increasing your fibre content. About 40 grams per day is a good benchmark, but you really don't need to worry about that number if you're eating a range of fruits, vegetables, and legumes with every meal. And when you swap the processed foods for the whole foods, going whole grain and whole meal, You also don't need to worry about counting your fibre content. So I hear you say, but I'm already vegan. Well, you are. You're doing a wonderful thing for the animals, a wonderful thing for the environment, and you probably feel better without the animal products in your diet. You probably already had health benefits, but it doesn't stop there. Eating whole food plant-based is doing the best thing you can do for your body so you can truly optimize your health. As we know, processed vegan foods are growing. They're everywhere. You can buy vegan meat and vegan pastries, and they're nutrient poor and they're calorie dense. And that's a problem, because when we eat foods that are nutrient poor, we're not getting the nutrition we need, we're not getting the vitamins and the minerals. And when they're calorie dense, they're giving us too many calories than we need in a day. They're often high in saturated fat, high in salt and sugar, and it's simply not good for us, and I'll mention why later. Whole food plant-based foods minimise our exposure to harmful substances, and they maximise our exposure to all the nutrients that we need. Soluble fibre helps to lower our cholesterol, and you can find that in oats, in legumes, chickpeas, fruit and veg. Insoluble fibre helps to keep your bowel activity regular and helps keep your digestive tract clean. It's found in whole grains, in fruits with skins, berries, and again, your lentils, kidney beans, those sorts of foods. In general, all fruits and vegetables provide us with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. And the great part is that if you eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, you don't need to worry about the individual vitamins and minerals because you're going to be getting a sufficient supply in the right mix for absorption just by eating your fruits and veggies. There are a couple of exceptions, well, not really exceptions, but things that I'd like to highlight, and I'll do that in a moment. So whole food plant-based eating, why? What are the benefits? What are you going to get from it? So you're going to get healthy weight management. You're going to achieve a stable weight and a healthy weight. Improvement in skin conditions, so inflammatory and infective things like acne and eczema. Constipation, indigestion, bloating, you can reduce it, resolve it. Women's health, so reducing painful, heavy cycles, also reducing your risk of gestational diabetes. Reduce joint pain and stiffness in both osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. More sufficient and sustained energy throughout the day, and improving your blood sugar and blood pressure control. Many people ask, well, if I'm eating a whole food plant-based diet, why do I need to eat low fat? Why do I need to take that extra step? The answer's simple. High-fat whole foods like nuts, seeds, avocado, coconut, olives, they all have healthy attributes, but overall they're very calorie dense and they contribute to weight gain. 1 gram of fat contains more than double the calories as 1 gram of carbohydrates or protein. So it's easy to eat more than the recommended calories for our age and activity when we rely on high-fat food sources for the majority of our intake. There's other problems with eating a high-fat diet, and I'll also mention that in a moment. This slide's fantastic. It's from Juliana Heaver, who is the plant-based dietitian. She has a great website, so please check it out. And it really does explain calorie density. So the first picture shows us 400 calories of food as oil. And as you can see, it's in the stomach, it's not having much presence, it's not stretching the stretch receptors in your stomach, it's not going to send you the signals back to your brain that you're full. It's also not going to help stimulate those gut hormones that are going to help you digest the food. We move on to the second picture, which is 400 calories of food as beef. And really you can see it's not really doing much more than the 400 calories of oil. But when we look at the picture of the 400 calories of vegetables, we see a full stomach. We've activated all of those stretch receptors, we're sending signals back to our brain, we're achieving satiety or a sense of fullness. We've also stimulated all of our gut hormones to help produce those hormones that help with digestion, with satiety, and that's important. And the other great thing is it's a stomach full of high fibre, healthy food. So oil, it's 100% fat. I don't care if you're eating olive oil, coconut oil, flaxseed oil, sunflower oil, it's all 100% fat. The package on the front, the marketing might tell you that it's got some special property, but at the end of the day, it's 100% fat. And if you're not prepared to add 100% sugar and 100% salt into your dishes every time you cook them, you really need to second guess and think about why people are adding 100% fat into their food. The other problem with these oils is they're about 70% saturated fat. And the problem with saturated fat is it upregulates our production of cholesterol. Now, our livers produce enough cholesterol that we need every day to be protective for our cells and our brain. We don't need to produce more, and we don't need to eat more. When we eat foods that are high in saturated fat, so oils and other high-fat foods, then we're increasing our production of saturated fat. So we're increasing our production of cholesterol. We're raising our total blood serum cholesterol and our LDL cholesterol. So LDL, or bad cholesterol, as you might have heard, the problem with that is that when it's in our bloodstream, it irritates the endothelial cell lining. And that's the very, very thin lining that protects the inside of your arteries. And when that becomes irritated, the LDL cholesterol becomes oxidized and it deposits inside the artery wall. And that's what causes narrowing of arteries. When you've got deposits happening in the wall, the lumen becomes smaller and smaller, and the blood supply to those end organs becomes reduced exponentially because you're reducing the flow every time you reduce the diameter. Ongoing exposure, so eating this way time after time, leads to narrowed arteries, and these large deposits in the walls can become unstable over time. And if they break away, not only do you have a piece of tissue broken away in your body, but you also have the clotting cascade that happens. And when these clots form, they flick off, they go down the artery, and they block off the end result, which might be your liver, your kidney, your brain, or your heart, and that results in heart attacks and strokes. The saddening thing about this is that heart attacks and strokes are very common. Despite what you may know, they're the leading cause of death in people aged over 40 years. Now, just to give a bit of perspective to it, it takes 5 kilos, well, at least 5 kilos of olives to extract 1 litre of olive oil. If a recipe asks for a 1/4 cup or 62 mils of oil, quite common in cakes and curries, then would you really add the equivalent of 300 grams of olives to the meal? If you wouldn't eat a meal containing that many olives, why are you adding the oil of that many olives to the food? Even a 1 tablespoon drizzle of oil on your salad or into the curry is going to be the equivalent of 100 grams of olives. Sugar and salt. Sugar and salt are refined products, and just like oil, they're not a food, but unfortunately we see them as food every single day. Processed foods, vegan or not, are usually a combination of sugar and fat or salt and fat. These are things like donuts, pastries, and pretty much every deep-fried food. Sugar affects the way your body mineralizes its bones, and it can deteriorate your bones over time, contributing to osteoporosis. It affects your dental health, your kidneys by increasing your risk of kidney stones and fatty liver, which is all too common these days. The very important fact is that whole fruit does not pose these risks. We move on to salt, which also has its own set of health issues. It increases your risk of hypertension, kidney disease, heart disease, and fluid retention. There are a few nutrients that vegans and plant-based eaters should be mindful of, and in fact they're the same nutrients that all Australians, irrespective of diet, should be concerned about. These include B12 and vitamin D, iodine and omega-3. The first 3 are concerns for the general population. All vegans should take B12. The recommended daily intake is about 2.4 to 2.8 micrograms per day for adults, with 2.8 being the recommendation for pregnant and breastfeeding women. A B12 supplement once a week is sufficient. Your liver stores the B12 and it can store it for months and even years. So new vegans may not have trouble with their B12, but it's still recommended to start taking one regardless. Most supplements are between 50 and 1,000 micrograms, and 50 milligrams once a week is sufficient. However, if you have a higher supplement, there's no current evidence that shows that it poses any danger to your health by taking the higher dose. Vitamin D is important as well. It's important for our bones and our kidneys. You need just 15 to 30 minutes of sun exposure a day in winter and a few minutes per day in other seasons, and that's enough to maintain your vitamin D stores in most people. I've got a few key messages in summary. The things I want you to take away from this. Nutrient dense, not calorie dense. We want foods that provide us with high levels of nutrition, not high levels of calories without the nutrition. You want to make sure you take your B12 supplement, and it's always important to review your nutritional intake via blood tests and assessment with your doctor or dietitian, especially if you're a new vegan. Here are some of the resources that I recommend. So please check out the Facebook page for Plant Powered Perth. Check out our regular events. PCRM, which I showed their resource earlier, are fantastic. That's the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's been around for more than 20 years, and it's a leading organisation in whole food plant-based health in America. Nutritionfacts.org, I'm sure you're all aware of Dr. Greger's work. It's fantastic. Great videos and posts. And plantbasedhealthaustralia.com.au, coming from Dr. McKay in Melbourne. And please check out the plantritionproject.org, the Quick Start Guide. It's a 44-page all-round resource that I'm sure you'll all find really helpful. And if you want to have a look at my app, you can have a look on the iTunes store and have a chat with us over at our booth over there. Thank you very much.